You're listening to the Cinik Radio Podcast. Now, your hosts, Igri and Cinik.
Welcome back to the Cinik Radio Podcast. I'm Igor, he's Cinik. We're looking forward to talking to you again this week. Happy Thanksgiving. We're back with an episode talking about The Walking Dead. We're going to have What's Up. We're going to have all kinds of fun this week. My Thanksgiving was great. I overate as always, went out and spent way too much money on Black Friday like every good American should. I had a great time with family. I had a great time just being around. I re-listened to some old episodes. I had a lot of fun. How was your Thanksgiving, Cinik?
Well, in a word, odd. I don't often go to parties. I don't often get invited because people know that I'm a bit of a recluse and a shut-in. I had a coworker come up to me and ask if I would come to his Thanksgiving dinner. He's a pretty fun guy. He drinks, I drink. I know that most of his family drinks. We're all Irish. So we cut to his house. I never know what to wear to these things. I never know, how to dress. I never know what to bring. Last time I went somewhere, I brought a pie, and 6 other people brought the same pie. So on my way out the door, I had this grand idea. Everybody loves bourbon. So I find a open liquor store. They're closed, and the guy yelled at me as I ran in, "You got 5 minutes." I run and find my favorite type of bourbon, grab some Coke. I'm extremely proud of myself, feeling accomplished, hop back in the car, and head on over to Dave's house. So I knock on Dave's door. Dave's brother answers. I greet Dave's brother. We're usually very friendly. We've drank together before. He kind of just gives me a nod and sends me in. I go inside to find Dave's wife to find where I should put my bourbon and Coke, where it won't be in the way. At first, she kind of smiles at me. She's happy to see me. That's a good thing. Then she grabs me by the wrist and leads me in the other room, and she said, "Oh, Dave didn't tell you? We're having a dry Thanksgiving because as soon as we're done eating, Dave's brother's going to have to go to rehab for alcohol."
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
So, to make matters worse, I'm standing there with my bourbon and Coke still in hand. I decide, all right, well, I'll try to sneak outside and bring this stuff back to the car before anybody sees me. So I walk outside, and there stands Dave's brother smoking a cigarette.
Well, the standard rehab precursor, got to have cigarettes. Surprised you didn't have a cup of coffee in the other hand.
Yeah, I wander back out to my car, put the walk of shame, put the bourbon and the Coke back in the car. I just want to go back home. I go back inside. We have a fantastic dinner, and I'm glad they invited me. But the moral of the story is, this is why I don't leave my house.
And information you could have used yesterday. It could have worked out a whole lot better. But you know what? Americans, if nothing else, we are dysfunctional. I can't believe you're the only one in this country that happened to, and maybe not even the only one of our listeners. What a crazy story. Talk about an awkward feeling.
Absolutely. #Cinic's awkward. Miss out on that latest viral video? Didn't see the most recent trailer for the next movie coming out? In the dark about what the biggest song in America is? We've got you covered. Every week we scour the internet and look for the latest and greatest. This is What's Up.
What's up for me this week is the newest video from the band OK Go. The rock band OK Go have outdone themselves with their latest effort, a video filmed in just 4.2 seconds. The montage for the band's song, The One Moment, is then slowed down to 4 minutes and 12 seconds, showing paint explosions, bursting water balloons, and blown-up guitars. It's a catchy tune. It's a lot of fun to watch. The band started doing videos with treadmills, moved on to self-balancing unicycles with thousands of extras and umbrellas. This video outdoes them both. It's creative, it's fun, it's trippy, it's eclectic, and it's a good time. Go check it out on YouTube. OK Go, The One Moment. That's what's up.
What's up for me this week is Enter Sandman, performed by Jimmy Fallon, The Roots, and Metallica, playing nothing but kids' classroom instruments. The clip is a smile-inducing 2 minutes and 41 seconds long, and something tells me we wouldn't have got this from the group 10 or 20 years ago. So hats off to them for taking themselves a little less seriously and having a good time, and this new crop of late show host for not only being funny, but extremely talented and disarming the guests to the point where late night is fun again. You can find this clip on YouTube and NBC.com. Metallica, Jimmy Fallon, and The Roots. That's what's up. All right, everybody. This week we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about The Walking Dead, Episode 5, Season 7, Go-Getters. First off, I wasn't overly in love with the title. I don't know about you, Ig. How do you feel about it?
No, I'm not. It doesn't fit kind of with really the entire run of the series. The title's just, it's odd, really, more than anything else. I mean, go-getters, I guess going to get something, but it doesn't fit. It doesn't feel right. It's not fun. And I think that's what they were trying to do, is make it fun, and it just didn't fit.
Well, and sell and go get, it just seems lazy. The first episode was days going by. You know what I mean? I'm not crazy about the naming scheme, but let's go. So we open the episode with Maggie's eyes opening in the infirmary at Hilltop, and Dr. Carson's there to greet her. She's worried about the baby. He tells her she's suffering from detached placenta, but the baby's fine, but he thinks that she should stay the length of the pregnancy where, she can be around him.
And having a doctor around when you're having any kind of pregnancy complication, that's normal. This isn't present day. This is apocalypse, and bed rest isn't really a viable option like it is in our current community, but at least being around where if something starts to go a little goofy, having a doctor that can at least save the mom's life, save Maggie's life. Yeah, that seems like a feasible opportunity.
Yeah, I agree totally. So they discuss it. It looks like she kind of feels a little bit better about the whole situation. She goes outside to find Sasha waiting for her. She wants to see where Glenn and Abraham are buried. So they walk over to the graves. Before we get into that, I really thought that burying them there was a real odd choice. And a bit presumptuous, seeming that they've been there once. They really don't have any connection to the community. It's just like, I've been over your house once, so I decided to plant my grandma on your lawn.
Or my cat.
Depends on the cat. That one cat's big. I really don't have that big of a lawn. Sasha hands Maggie Glenn's watch and said the only thing Abraham had in his pocket was a cigar in true Abraham fashion.
Right, well, Glenn's watch, but originally Herschel's watch. So it's really got some family heirloom type of things. Hopefully that'll be their child's watch. It's really got some meaning if you've been a fan of this show. Having that watch, knowing where it's been, what it's gone through, that to me was a pretty touching thing, that it was recognized to make sure Maggie got that.
Did you see the screen cap on the internet that they, the fans are stirring that Sasha could possibly be pregnant as well? There was one scene where Maggie's rubbing her stomach. By the way, she's the most unpregnant looking person in the world. She looks like she's about 2 days pregnant.
Or negative 2 days pregnant. She's got no pregnant tendency whatsoever. But that doesn't mean that in the apocalypse, malnourishment and everything else going on, and especially with all of the hell they've been taking lately, that it couldn't come up as a show writing possibility. It does feel like it would be lazy writing, but it could be possible.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing that I noticed from this episode is we got to see the rest of the cast and the reaction and how everything went for them. However, these two are really still locked in the moment. They're still kneeling in that line. They're still dealing with the ramifications of losing people they cared about deeply. I kind of wish that this episode would have been a little more forward in the run, because it kind of brought it brought levity to the situation as far as, these people are still stuck right where they were, 2 or 3 days ago, and watching the people that they care about most just kind of being bashed to pieces.
Yeah, and they do say some days have gone by, but they haven't had anything significant to grant them any new hope. They haven't had anything to grant them any reason to feel alive again. They haven't seen anything to make them even begin to be able to mourn properly, because it's basically grab your dead, run to Hilltop, lay in a hospital bed for a couple of days, and then go look at a grave. You know, and if they'd have ran this one right after the premiere, I think that would have been more fitting, because we were still fresh and it still hurt and it was okay. Now it kind of brings all that back up, kind of like rubbing salt in an old wound.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Jesus comes up, comforts them a little bit, brings flowers. It was a real nice reconnection with the character. He's a good guy. He's generally concerned for the well-being of not only the people of Hilltop, but Rick's group. There's a little bit of a conversation, and then Maggie decides that she's going to leave Glenn's watch at the grave, which definitely is going to come back into the story later.
It is, but you know what I liked about this was it shows Jesus' compassion, and it almost makes him look like an actual Jesus, where it's not if you are among my group that I love you no matter who you are. And I'm not sure that it's going to be a universal love. I mean, he may not necessarily turn the other cheek when it comes to certain things, people that are trying to hurt others and whatever. But, you know, knowing that different colors mean different things, and it was really cool. I mean, it was kind of fun. I mean, I've liked the Jesus character since he was introduced last season. He's just pretty fun. He's entertaining. He's charismatic. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's definitely ripped right out of the comic book. They've done a great job and a great casting with him. So, in my opinion, douchebag of the week shows up. Gregory comes to give Jesus, Maggie, and Sasha some shit.
Totally a douchebag and just stuck in his own ways. And the one thing you can't be in the apocalypse is unwilling to change for the better. And this guy this is the way we do things. This is the way we've always done things. This is the way we will always do things. And for no reason, for nothing, will we ever change. And he keeps basically repeating that in the interaction.
Yeah, right away he accuses Maggie of dishonesty and says, "I thought you people got them all." And you can tell by his expression when Maggie says, "No, it was just an outpost," that there's possibly hundreds of them. You know, you can almost see him physically turn green.
And not Hulk green. He's not feeling good. He can't figure out what's going on. He can't figure out which way is up. And he turns from that into yelling about, we don't bury our dead here. I mean, what do you think about that? We don't bury our dead. We burn them. And you could see how Maggie was almost getting upset at that point. You could see almost the fire burning in her eyes, like, how dare you say what you're going to do to my husband?
Agreed, and you can see the different theories in the way, well, Hilltop, I actually saw an overhead view this morning, but Hilltop not being a very big community, but also doesn't seem to be really tight-knit. You know, you see from the very beginning, I mean, they come back from a meeting with the Saviors, and the first thing they try to do is stab Gregory to death to save some character that, you know, was almost nameless in the story. So not only does it show you the closest of the people to Hilltop, or lack thereof, but it also shows you how much they value Gregory as a leader.
Yeah, very little. I mean, he's basically a figurehead that makes unnecessary day-to-day decisions, or absolutely necessary day-to-day decisions that really aren't going to affect the greater outcome of anything.
No, he's definitely there for himself. His decision process is a lot more cowardly, but you can see it's a lot like Negan's, where it's whatever is going to benefit him and less about the community.
Absolutely, and that's why he's living in the big house.
That he is. So he basically accuses Maggie and Rex's group of forcing them to take the deal. He's a little upset that they didn't get the job done. He wants Maggie gone as soon as possible, and apparently he thinks Sasha's some sort of slave labor because he wants her back in the kitchen as soon as possible. He doesn't even recognize the fact that she doesn't live there. You know, he's like, "Oh, you stay away from that girl and, you know, get back and do your work." And she nicely points out to him that I don't live here, and I buried the bodies in the back.
And that was one of the greatest moments in this episode. Not the greatest. We'll get to that one. I have an absolute favorite moment in this episode. That wasn't it, but that was pretty good.
Yeah, Jesus stands up to him. Then he kind of throws a thinly veiled threat at Jesus that, well, you can always go back with them. Jesus gets his meaning, but kind of plows through it anyway and says, I will go back with them. I'll take them back tomorrow. And Gregory tells him that's not what he's talking about. All right, we do a quick cut to Alexandria where Carl and his dad are having a pointless argument while he shows Aaron and Michonne how not to play darts. We can see that the whole only having one eye thing is definitely messing with depth perception.
And aim for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And quick little cut of Enid going over the wall yet again, because that type of behavior seems, pretty common for her.
Well, Enid's going to do what Enid's going to do, and she comes and goes and comes and goes when she fucking feels like it, which, that's Enid.
We jump back to the hilltop, and Sasha and Jesus are kind of having a conversation. She's desperate for Maggie to stay near the doctor. It seems like keeping Maggie and the baby healthy is her number one priority in life.
Yeah, well, she's holding on to something, and I guess, in the face of desperation, what people are going to need is something to hold on to, some good thing in their life, and for Sasha, that might be Maggie and the baby.
Jesus expresses some remorse over the loss of Abe. He said, he was a good guy, I liked him. He's one of the few people I've ever met that can make you smile and wince with one comment.
And again, Jesus comes through with a great moment, a great line, and he's had just about any episode he showed up in, he's had at least one. And he's got a number in this episode.
We cut back to the road where world-renowned bike thief and wall climber Enid is climbing down the road, or at least rolling down the road, and she's shocked to see that there's actually a walker out there. She must have forgot that the show is called The Walking Dead. In a true Grimes-like nature, Carl steals a car and promptly runs over a walker or two, and just like his mom, Lori, crashes into a perfectly good gas station. Those people are a menace behind the wheel.
I don't know. I haven't seen Rick drive lately, but maybe we ought to just take all their driver's licenses away. And this will come in later, but there's definitely some driving points being given out in this episode.
We jump back to my favorite episode of the show. Absolutely wonderfully done. If the Saviors are anything, they're theatrical. The gates, it's nighttime, the gates swing open, there's fire, there's music, there's walkers, there's an FU gremlin. It was fantastic. The attack on Hilltop begins.
I liked how they did it. I mean, they covered it in armor. They had a machined middle finger sticking up on the back of it. They locked everything up tight. It was amazing, and it was just pumping some awful song. It was wonderful.
I think I read somewhere that was Symphony Number 9. I enjoyed that scene a lot. I mean, they had a little bit of everything. I don't know if you noticed or not, but when Maggie and Sasha kind of sprung to try to help, they were locked in that trailer. So they weren't guests at Hilltop at that point. There were more prisoners. Somehow they get out of the trailer. Jesus jumps down and parkours his way to the floor and spin kicks a walker. The way he deals with combat in those situations, even when he was fighting Rick and Daryl, I enjoy the character a lot. It's kind of like Morgan without the staff.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. It's a Morgan Spider-Man mashup that tends to work. And I mean, I guess if a real Jesus was walking the earth, I doubt that he'd be carrying a whole lot of guns and knives and firepower and stuff. He would be, just kind of like Kwai Chang Caine, walking the earth with his flute and doing his thing. And Jesus does his thing, and somehow he comes away pretty much unscathed every time.
Maggie directs two awestruck Hilltoppers to go, hey, maybe you should close the gate so more walkers can't get in. I don't know what happened to those guys because it looks like they never made it over to the gate. Hilltop appears to be essentially worthless. So the music's blaring, they can't get in the car, it's armored. They run around it, and there comes Maggie with the John Deere tractor. What, in my opinion, has to be Walker Kill of the Week, just backing over them with those huge tires, and then backing over the gremlin as well.
And that's what I'm talking about as far as points on the license. She's definitely got to get points on the license. Not only is she, driving over people, but she just drives right over that gremlin. If it had been any faster, it would have been a monster truck rally. It was a good time, and it was effective, but, it was almost one of those things where the music kept playing for so long, you got to go over it 3 or 4 times to get it to shut up. It was hilarious. It was effective. It was fun. That was my absolute favorite part of this episode as far as action.
Yeah, I agree that an episode of very little action. We cut back to the road. Enid and Carl are kind of doing their date night out as they walk to Hilltop. They find some skates. Once again, you can see that The Walking Dead using physical distance to represent emotional distance, as Enid's walking kind of ahead and Carl's skulking behind her. They find some roller skates, and there's a cute little date night thing going on. Carl finally breaks down and apologizes to Enid for locking her in the armory, but he's glad that she didn't see what happened, that she wasn't there to watch Glenn die.
Yeah, and I think Enid doesn't really understand the gravity of what was going on. I mean, and that's shown by her unwillingness to listen to anybody and just keep out rolling and doing what she used to do, thinking that everything's going to be all right. I don't think she understands the severity of the saviors out there, and I'm not sure she's going to get it anytime soon.
I mean, she's going kind of from one secure location to another. Once she makes it to Hilltop, who knows when she'll kind of be out in the wild again. So Carl states he's glad that she didn't see it, but she said, "Are you sorry that you did?" And he tells her no, because there's some things that can't be forgotten and should be seen. Gregory's office after the attack, and Maggie and Sasha and Jesus are there. Gregory is more than ready for Mags to hit the road.
And, she doesn't want to go. Jesus doesn't want her to go. Sasha doesn't want her to go. The doctor doesn't want her to go. Probably the rest of Hilltop, if Ass doesn't want her to go. Again, we're just at Gregory doing what Gregory wants to do and I'm not even sure Gregory knows why.
Almost pleading with her, which Sasha doesn't do very often. She's like, "Is there any way we can make this work?" And Gregory gives her the creepiest up and down look somebody in power could possibly give someone pleading with them. It was disgusting. I wanted to reach through the television and smack him around myself for doing it. And right away, Maggie springs to action and tells him to go to hell. If you remember back to their first encounter, he kind of did the same thing to her when Rick sent her in to negotiate the original deal with Hilltop.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's a lonely man and is willing to use his position of pseudo-power to get whatever he can get.
So the gates swing open, and here come the Saviors, once again in maximum number, because that's kind of what they do. With finally, we've all been asking for it, we've all been calling for it, Simon in the lead. Gregory promptly tells Jesus to hide Maggie and Sasha in the hall closet, and we cut to just a ton of Saviors piling into the big house, and Gregory just kind of counting them as they walk in.
And it was a pretty good number. I'm not sure Gregory's smart enough to count that high.
Probably not. I don't know the conventional wisdom of Carl on skates with things that could possibly attack him and kill him, but you could definitely tell that Carl hasn't had, much experience on the skates as him and Enid continue their happy, fun date down the road. Simon wants to talk to Gregory in the study and see his prize painting. You can tell that's probably not going to go anywhere good. He informs Gregory that all the Saviors that have been handling Hilltop have been killed. At that point, did you think Gregory was going to leave the office alive?
I didn't. I almost thought he was going to die right then and there. But that wouldn't be the Savior's way, really. They tend to do things a little bit more theatrically. They kind of want things out in the open. They want everyone to see what they're going to do. They don't just kill someone out of necessity or convenience. They kill people for power struggle, and part of the power struggle is to make sure that everyone knows you're doing it. But I didn't think he was going to make it out of this episode.
Yeah, he kind of relays, that they're admiring the painting. He relays that, I understand what's going on. Message received. You guys are in charge. Once he's informed that the people handling him, it's almost like there's different departments for different communities, have all dead. He does an Anthony Hopkins-like job of acting. You can kind of see right through it as he's terribly emoting how surprised he is. Simon informs him that probably dealing with someone like you is why they're dead, because you made them soft. You made them an easy target.
And there couldn't be more truth to it. I mean, if they'd all been listening to Jesus or Rick or someone of the ilk, they become better prepared for when the bad things come and happen. But a lot of these things end up so bad because of weak leadership. We may see some of that in the coming world soon. Who knows? Don't want to get too political.
Well, he informs Gregory not to worry because the people that killed his people work for them now, which Gregory, he instantly gets the hidden meaning behind that, and you can see him start to panic. Triple word score as they tie the name of the title into the dialogue. Simon says, they're a bunch of go-getters.
Through hell or high water, they're going to get things done. They're going to progress. They're going to move. They're going to do what they need to do. But, it also shows the lack of go-getter attitude in the hilltop as a general whole. They're surviving. They're doing all right, but they're not looking to try and improve their situation.
Well, especially since Negan dispatched Simon to go deal with Gregory, where he showed up right away to make an impact at Alexandria with Rick. He didn't send the middleman. The man himself showed up to kind of deal with business. Gregory, he's kind of fidgeting a little bit. Simon looks him over and asks him, is there anything you want to tell me? You see Gregory almost emotionally break. At this point, did you think he was giving up Sasha and Maggie?
I thought that was it. I thought they were going to get carted off because we all know Negan had a nice look at Maggie a little bit, even though she was sick and everything. He's like, gonna fill the void. I thought they were done. I thought they were all done.
Gregory leads Simon over to a closet, opens the door. Both of them are kind of foiled because the only thing in there is a couple cases of scotch. The one thing Gregory did do on all this, kind of played it off, not being disappointed, turns around and says, here, this is for you guys, this is for Negan. Simon doesn't like scotch, but he's willing to give it to Negan as an offering. He thanks him, however, he lets him promptly know, I'm going to go ahead and take the headline on this. I'm going to take the credit. You're probably not going to be mentioned. Just another kick in the gut to poor Gregory there.
Yeah, well, Ron Burgundy, he's not. Maybe that's a good thing, and taking the credit for it's even a better thing. Simon's going to look good. It works, and Gregory is going to look like the sad sack that he's kind of turning into right now.
As we said previously, always in theatrics, Simon asked Gregory, can I get a kneel before I go? You know that this is just one last parting shot, that not only are we going to go through here and take half your stuff, but you're always a step away from meeting Lucille. You're always, just a heartbeat away from not being here anymore. And that's the effect of terror that people kind of miss with the Saviors. They're like, well, why don't you fight back? Oh, I don't know, because they'll just kind of kill your whole community and take all of your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, is you need to kowtow. I mean, it's kind of like 300 with the God King. I mean, he took over so many things, people that wouldn't bend a knee. And, these guys are not Leonidas, that's for sure. They don't have the 300 that are going to stand up to the millions.
We shoot over to Enid and Carl watching the Saviors load up half the Hilltop stuff. To this point, Carl was trying to play it off as if he was there for Enid and he wanted to make sure she got there safely. She kind of looks at his expression and realizes he's not there for her as much as he's on a mission to go try to find these guys. She calls him out a little bit. He finally admits it. She, in so many words, essentially tells him he's going to get himself killed. He kind of wanted her to go with him, and she's absolutely not having any of it. She needs to go see Maggie. So they kiss, they part ways.
Pretty nice little kiss there from the young teens. You can tell that they really have some feeling for each other. Maybe a little more on Carl's side than Enid's side, but Enid does like Carl quite a bit. Carl has a purpose. Carl has a mission. Carl has his own ideals. I like seeing that from Carl.
Yeah, he's kind of coming around as a character. He went from that annoying little boy that was always kind of in jeopardy in every moment to he's going to become an active, functional part of the group, if not the most well-rounded part of the group, because he's grown up in this situation now. He seems to process and deal with things a little bit better than everyone else that remembers when things were normal. We cut back to Gregory is absolutely pissed in his office that Sasha and Maggie weren't in his... it wasn't in the hallway, but in his bedroom closet.
Yeah, well, it was a decision made to hide them based on some of his own people there from Hilltop Jesus. You got to make sure to protect people, and that's what Jesus does. He protects people.
He tells Gregory, you just said the closet. You didn't specify a closet. There's a big discussion. Once again, they go back to Maggie and Sasha staying at Hilltop. Jesus finally puts his foot down. He's had enough. Because every time Jesus speaks up, Gregory's like, well, do you want to run this place? Do you want to do this job with the broken gate and, dealing with the saviors? Jesus finally had enough of his shit. He said, listen, they're staying. We're all going to be one dysfunctional family, so kind of deal with it.
Yeah, and somebody's going to lead, but not you.
She sees Gregory's picked up the watch off of Glenn's gravesite. It infuriates her, so she gives him a nice slug. And she says, listen, this is going to be our home now, so you're going to start to learn to call me by my name. Not Marcia, not Dear, Maggie Ree. What did you think about the acting in that particular scene? Because for me, that was Maggie's probably best scene of the series to date.
It was so strong, and to show that through all the adversity that she was like really kind of taking the horse by the reins, standing up and saying, look, this is how it's going to be. I've been through enough shit. I'm not putting up with any of your shit. I loved it. It was so good. And you're right. I mean, that she has really shined in that moment. She's had some really good scenes as an actress, but in that moment, it really came together for that character and for the actress. It worked so well.
Yeah, there's one other line coming up that everybody notes comic book wise, but we're not going to get into that right now. But I think that's probably, to date, her line of both the comic book and the series. It's the point where she finally makes a stand. And you can tell later because her and Jesus have a conversation about the progression of Hilltop and when he got there. And he says, I could never imagine anyone but Gregory in charge until now. She kind of looks at him sideways and he says, we'll have that conversation at another time. Sasha wants Jesus to find out where Negan lives. I don't know the conventional wisdom of that, but yet another person in this episode that kind of stepped up. I'm going to be honest, I haven't been a huge fan of Sasha up until now. They're really, other than the watching the pain of her loss, which, was momentous through Tyrese and Bob and now Abraham. I didn't like the character, but this episode really kind of grew on me a little bit, and it just kind of further pushes along the badass chick storyline I think we're going for this season.
She does. I mean, she pulls right up, and I was right on board with you, where she was kind of a tertiary character. She was just there for a little bit of filler to give some humanity to Tyrese and Abraham and other characters, but she wasn't important. She wasn't useful. But this episode, she showed up as strong and caring and necessary. So I liked the change. I liked that they showed some depth to her. It worked pretty well.
She comes out and she finds Enid sitting at the graves. Poor Enid had one job to do. She had a 50-50 shot. She came all the way there to tie these poor balloons on Glenn's grave. And unfortunately for her, she got the wrong one.
Well, things are going to happen. I mean, they didn't mark them very well. They just 2 holes in the ground covered with some dirt trying to figure out which is which, especially since the watch wasn't on one of them. Makes it a little harder.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Gregory. Thanks for that. I don't know if you caught this or not. I caught it on my second viewing of the show. They kind of cut back to the trailer where Maggie's making some sort of dish in and somehow Enid magically turns her metal ladle into a wooden spoon. The Walking Dead doesn't do that very often where they kind of gaff that way, but it was hilarious. Did you pick up on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while they just have a blatant misstep that I think they must have been shooting on different days, and whoever's in charge of that wasn't paying attention. And it's a minor thing, but it's kind of fun to catch them.
Yeah, it really is. Continuation errors is always it's always a good time. It's like when they're standing on one side and then they're standing on the other. Enid's kind of shocked. She wants to know. I heard you stopped an invasion and ran over walkers in a car with a tractor. Maggie turns around and promptly tells her how one summer she caught gonorrhea from riding on the tractor in her bathing suit. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong show. Sasha comes in, they continue dinner, and in a show of gratitude and friendship, and to show how much Enid meant to Glenn, and since she has no one else, gives Glenn's watch to Enid. A fancy to meet you here moment as Jesus runs out, and I kind of found that a little unbelievable too, how the back of the truck was open, but Jesus runs out, picks a random truck to jump into, stows away, only to find Carl Grimes behind some boxes.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a stretch. And back to the watch, I'm not a fan of her giving the watch from her father and her husband to Enid. Now, I know that Glenn cared about Enid, and thusly Maggie cared about Enid. Can't you give her like some flowers or a sock or something? I mean, the one heirloom item that you have in this whole thing, and even so, a useful heirloom thing being a winding pocket watch. Give it to a kid who is kind of flighty. I didn't like that, but the even bigger stretch was 12 trucks leaving and Jesus jumping into the one that happens to have Carl hiding in it. A little bigger stretch.
Yeah, the ending definitely didn't portray the rest of the strength of the show. I heard a lot of backlash about the show, but it seems like at this point, after post Glenn and Abraham, that people really aren't happy with anything that they're doing, and it's reflecting. I ran a couple polls this week, and I asked who people thought was the standout performance, and I thought for sure when I asked this question, people would have said Maggie, because between Maggie and Simon, that was definitely my opinion. However, overwhelmingly, people thought Jesus stood out the most in this episode.
Jesus did a good job, but I'm of the ilk that I think Maggie too. But, the people have spoken.
Agreed. A couple other things I asked people, overall, the fan base, are you worried about the decline in ratings? It's now hit a 3-year low, which we both predicted after episode 1 that there was going to be a drop in viewership. Overwhelmingly, people said at a 70%, no, they're not. 20% said that they'll be back. 6% of the people answered they shouldn't have been watching the show in the first place, and 4% of the people answered yes. I also asked, at this point of the series, who do you identify most with as a character? Overwhelmingly, number 1 was Daryl. Number 2 was Carol. Oddly enough, tied for number 3 was both Maggie and Michonne. And I was looking for top 5, but tied for 4 was Negan and Rick. I was kind of surprised by those answers a little bit.
I'm surprised by it too. I mean, that's some pretty high opinions of yourselves if everybody's identifying as Daryl. Daryl's a pretty tough guy, but I have not met many people in my life that could be Daryl in a tough situation. I'm not saying I've not met any, but it's not a big thing. I think a lot of people have opinions of themselves that may not be true. But it is going to show. I mean, a lot of people would, venture to say that Boba Fett is the character they deal with in Star Wars. But, who's going to be Boba Fett besides Boba Fett? Who's going to be Daryl besides Daryl? But that doesn't mean he's not the coolest. He's not the most fun. He's not the one that people aspire to be.
Yeah, everybody wants to be the cool guy in the room. I figured Rick would do a little bit better. How about you? Are you concerned at all about the well-being of the series with the decline in viewership weekly?
I'm not. I know it's a 3-year low, but the thing is after the first few episodes, it tends to drop a little bit until we get closer to the mid-season finale, because there's just a lot of setup in these episodes. It's a year-to-year thing. It's a lot of setup things. There's you can come in and pick up at the mid-season finale, and they'll do all the stuff before the show actual starts. Previously on The Walking Dead. They'll catch you up completely on everything really important that's happened so that you're not lost. That's when people start to come back, pick up on the beginning of the second half of the season, and then they fall off again until you get closer to the finale for the season. It's a cyclical thing, and I don't know why. I mean, people call themselves fans of the show and then, watch 6 of the 20 episodes a year. But it's how it's worked for all of these years. So, I mean, it's going to be fine. The show's going to be fine. I think they've already renewed for multiple seasons after this one. I don't think there's a problem. I don't think there's a reason to worry.
I don't think so either, and I think that's why the renewal was right away. I think they kind of knew that some of the more faint of heart people were probably going to exodus out of there when Lucille landed its first killing blow, which probably won't be its last. Overall, solid episode. Some great standout performances from some characters that might not have got as much play as they should have. What do you rate this episode?
Surprisingly, I'm going to go a little bit high on this episode, I think, for about a 6.8. Because of the nuances in the show and because of the things going on with this episode with Jesus and Maggie, I'm going a little higher than I think anybody would anticipate. I'm going to say 6.8.
We did have a lack of walkers and a lack of action, which you can't have in every single episode, but I did dig the shining the light on Simon, looking at Sasha a little deeper, and Maggie's big stand, and of course Jesus is always strong. The ending for me was a little so-so. I'll go ahead and give it a 7, and we'll hope that next week's episode can stand up to this one.
Right, there you go. Cinik Radio Podcast, average rating 6.9. Easy to figure out this week, especially since there's only 2 of us this week. We're looking forward to the next episode. Should be a lot of fun. We always have to remember, we get caught in the details a little bit. The suspension of disbelief, like having Jesus jump into the same truck, that's what makes some of these things run. If he just jumped into a different truck and they ended up going different ways and didn't cross paths, it would be a little less fun to watch. We're having a good time. The Walking Dead, Sundays on AMC. We'll be talking about it again next week, I'm absolutely sure, because this season has been great for both of us. So now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's time for Really. I'd explain it. Just listen. You'll get it.
Well, League, my really this week goes out to technology and the way we use it. Seems like my whole life, every time we come up with some sort of new tech, we either try to figure out a way to have sex with it or broadcast sex using it. Nowadays, drones are all the rage. And what fantastic way are we using them? Are we using them to get medicine to the sick? Or water to the thirsty? Well, not so much. We're using them to deliver pizza. Domino's in New Zealand has started a first-of-its-kind drone delivery program. They hope to expand all deliveries via drone by 2017. So the future is here, IG. And we may not have flying cars, but we have flying pizza. Really?
A&E, which used to mean something, has finally come to their senses and decided to cancel Duck Dynasty after 11 seasons and falling ratings. By the time the final episode airs in April of 2017, the series will have produced 130 episodes, which is 130 episodes more than we needed to figure out that these are some crazy white people somewhere in the South. These guys generated a whole bunch of merchandise, a whole bunch of weird slang, and a whole bunch of weird people running around the planet for the last few years. A&E used to mean arts and entertainment. It turned into assholes and everybody else. And all I can say is, finally, they came to their senses. But A&E, for having Duck Dynasty for 11 seasons. Really?
Well, we've gone and done it again. That's another episode in the can and pretty much all the time we have for this week. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, everybody for listening, for all the downloads, all the subscriptions, all the email, all the social media feedback, and especially all the iTunes reviews. It opens the show up to a bigger audience. I would also like to let you know that this past episode was our biggest downloaded show ever. We smashed all our records, and that's not lost on us. When we started this project, we had no illusions that we were going to become rich and famous. We just wanted a platform to talk about the things that we really enjoyed and maybe turn people on to some new things. So let's keep that going. We're on all the social media sites. You can reach us at cinicradio.com. You can email us at cinicradio@gmail.com. You can find us at Cinik Radio on the Twitters, and we're on Facebook at Cinik Radio. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms of Ig's haircut, or Thanksgiving leftovers, you can reach us at those places. Until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at CinicRadio.com. Available for download on iTunes.